there are a lot of important people in this room, but it is important that I recognize the leaders of our agencies here in the city. And before I finish welcoming you, I would like to welcome Fire Chief Scott Miller. There he is. And Assistant Fire Chief Jim Morgan up here, and Police Chief Johnny Cervantes right over here to my right. There are a few other people that you'll meet. Some of you probably know all of them. Those of you that are here that are family members, you may not know them, but you're going to know them here in a few minutes. So once again, we thank you very much for coming. My counterpart here from the fire department, Andrew, is going to speak to you in just a minute and tell you more about what's going on. But I want to say this as we begin the evening. We all, police officers, firefighters, and EMS and dispatchers, we deal with people on the worst of their days. It's very rare that we come across someone that's having a great day and just wants to, hey, how you doing? You know, they don't call us for those reasons. And once in a while, we are able to solve everyone's problem, and everyone gets to go home safe and happy. And tonight you're going to hear about an event, and we're going to recognize the people that were involved in an event where that exact thing happened, where everyone went home safe and everyone ended up being happy about the situation. And it was because of a coordinated effort. It was because of exactly how we are trained and want to work together as public safety and first responders in our city, in our community here in Casa Grande. So, having said that, I'd like to introduce to you my counterpart with the Casa Grande Fire Department, Fire Prevention Officer Andrew Hensley. Andrew?
So, I think it's outstanding that we were able to get everybody here tonight, everybody that was involved. Is Bill Anthony here? There you are, back there. All right, so that's great. We have everybody here that was involved. I remember when I wanted to schedule a picture event for my family. I wanted to get all of my father-in-law's daughters together and do a family picture portrait thing for them for Christmas or Father's Day or something. It took 3 years to schedule it and actually get everybody there in the same place at the same time to get that picture. So to be able to do this in just a few days, to get this entire team together in the same place at the same time, and it's not an emergency, it's actually in recognition of how they handled an emergency, I think is extraordinary. But Thomas hit on a few of the things that I definitely wanted to add or introduce this whole thing with. He hit on the teamwork and the outstanding teamwork that needed to take place and align in order to make this whole thing happen. And that was, it started a long time before this actual day. And it's a partnership. It's a partnership between the fire department, between the local ambulance company, Southwest Ambulance, and between the police department and even our community members. And so one of the things that I want to hit on the most, or that I want most recognized in this room here today, is how outstanding it is that we had a handful of community members that were willing to and had the confidence to engage and actually do something about what was happening around them. They took charge. They took a leadership role. They helped out. They became team players, and they completed that link that we've been searching for so desperately in our community. So we have an outstanding relationship, and it gets stronger every day with our counterparts, as Thomas said, with PD, FD, Southwest. But what we're trying to build is that same partnership and that same teamwork and that same effort with our community members. So I definitely wanted to highlight that the most. But like I said just a little bit ago, there's a lot that went into this. This started a long time ago. It didn't start when that 911 call went out. So who we brought here today to shed some light on that particular subject is our Assistant Chief Jim Morgan. So he's going to come up and he's going to just, before we hand out the awards, talk to you guys a little bit about that effort and about that background. So if you lend him your ear.
Thank you, Andrew. Good evening, everybody. First of all, I would like, I feel like I'm a superstar here with all the lights in my face. Southwest Ambulance, would you stand? Melissa Engstrom, I believe you had a dispatcher that was assisting you as well, is she here as well? No, she's not here. Everyone pay attention, there were two dispatchers there. Officer Ibarra. Let's see, who else am I? Our company in the background. And then those that were involved on the scene. I believe it's the Lucases, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Salas, I apologize.
George, just stand up for us. Chuck, go ahead and stand up. Esther, if Esther's here, did she come? There she is. Okay, and what about Roberto? Great, the baby's with you. Our future rescuer right there in his arms.
Now look at all the folks that are standing up in this room. This is part of that team that went into tonight's event. Many times the public doesn't see all of these folks that work together to get that outcome that we hope to get at the end of the day, and that's saving lives and property. And together, as both Thomas and Andrew eloquently stated, it's that coordinated effort that gives us the reason to celebrate this evening, and that's the life of Mr. Anthony. So go ahead and take a seat, and I'm going to talk to you about how we got here. Because part of this wonderful outcome doesn't come without some pain. Part of that is having to self-reflect upon your system and look at your system's strengths and weaknesses. And in 2005, that was one of the things that we evaluated. We looked at some data. And unfortunately, the result of that evaluation wasn't very comforting. In fact, the way that I quoted it in the study was, you have better odds winning in Las Vegas than surviving an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest here in Casa Grande. Our survival rate for about an 8-month window, now it's not a significant window, but it was enough to be statistically valid, was a survival rate of 0. Now, I can tell you that we as public safety responders didn't accept that we didn't have any survivors out there. But when you start looking at the data, you begin to understand why. Fortunately, at the same time that we were looking at that data, there was a wonderful thing going on in our state. And I don't think we do enough to market what goes on in the state of Arizona. We hear so many of the negatives. Currently, what's going on in our legislature doesn't paint a pretty picture in Arizona. But it's places like Arizona that are leading the charge and changes in the EMS world, emergency medical services. Arizona was one of 6 what we call survivor sites, and I'm probably using the wrong terminology, but 6 agencies across the country that partnered to begin to look at sudden cardiac arrest. And they started evaluating the data across the country, and they found something interesting, that in some places, survival rates they were achieving 20%, 30%, 40%, and in some cases 50%. One of those places was Seattle. Seattle was achieving a 50% survival rate. You know, even me, who's not a rocket scientist when it comes to math, could figure out that if I had 10 cardiac arrests, I was saving 50% of those people. Well, when we were faced with this statistic of 0 survival, it was something we wanted to champion and take on. As I said, Arizona was a leader in emergency medical services. Dr. Ben Bobrow and a number of researchers with the U of A had been doing some research on CPR, and they identified a new method of doing CPR. We today call that continuous compression CPR. We were one of the leaders, innovators in implementing it, and got that started in the state of Arizona. Pinal County, however, was the weak link. The Tucson metro area and the Phoenix metro area were doing this and seeing dramatic results. We incorporated CCR in March of 2011 and immediately had survival results by making that one change. But we started saying, as we again evaluated the data, what were some of the weaknesses? When you look at our time sequence, and you can't see this, but I have a time fractile here. This comes from the city of Glendale. The city of Glendale also examined their time. And what they discovered was by the time the call went to their primary call center, a PSAP, was transferred to the secondary PSAP, was processed by the dispatcher, the tone set out to the engine company's wheels turning, and by the time they got to the patient's side, how long do you think it took? Any guesses? Greater than 5 minutes? Greater than 6 minutes? Greater than 7 minutes? Yeah, when they looked at it, it was about 9 minutes and 12 seconds. What do we know about CPR? Those of you that are healthcare providers, what do we know about CPR? Why did we teach you how to do it? Police officers, why did we teach you how to do CPR?
Because the brain begins to die 4 to 6 minutes after arrest. So without oxygen, your brain begins to die 4 to 6 minutes later.
And you have irreversible brain damage in 8 minutes. Well, if we're getting to your bedside at 9 minutes, what do you suppose survival is? 0. So is it surprising that our statistic was 0? In order to have any sense of survival, things had to be exactly perfect, and they aren't always that way. We can't afford to put a fire station on every corner like Starbucks to give you that 4-minute response time and get you by the patient's side in 4 minutes. So Andrew touched on having that community involvement. And one of the things that we knew we needed to do is look at those programs that were successful. In the Seattle area, as an example, not only did they have a greater than, in fact, it was 56% survival rate, 50% of their population knew CPR. And more than 50% of their population did CPR. Again, when we looked at the statistics nationally, we like to think that most of us would do the right thing, but nationally, when they came across somebody who was pulseless and non-breathing, they only got bystander CPR about 19% of the time. Our whole goal here this evening is to recognize a life saved. But it's this partnership that demonstrates how we get to saving those lives. We need community involvement. We need the dispatch component. That's one of the other things that came out of the Seattle study and the subsequent 5 other partners that came aboard this program. And we have since been implementing dispatch centers. In the old days, there were a couple of questions that used to get asked. Now we've streamlined it to a 2-question model. That 2-question model takes literally 15 seconds to identify whether that person's in a cardiac arrest. We used to try and ask the person, do you want to do CPR, giving that bystander the out. We no longer do that. We essentially twist their arm over the phone, getting them to do CPR. And again, tonight is the result of those pieces all coming together. The call to 911 was made, early recognition. The dispatcher coached the bystander to do CPR. We fortunately had a police officer who was waved down, from my understanding, and Andrew will go into more of these details, that was able to assist and continue that CPR. By having that early intervention and the dispatcher coaching those folks to do the CPR, what do we do for the patient? What did we do for Mr. Anthony? Why?
Prolonged survivability, sustained survivability.
Every minute that ticked by, Mr. Anthony's oxygen was depleting. His body was using those reserved stores. Every tick of the clock. Every minute that went by that the solaces weren't there. Every minute that went by that Officer Navarro wasn't there. Every minute that went by that Melissa Engstrom wasn't there providing that coaching, valuable oxygen was being depleted and life was slipping away. Fortunately, those pieces of the puzzle were there. They gave our engine company and our paramedic a survivable rhythm. They allowed our other component, the ACLS, to do its job in continuing that life through the transport to the hospital. So one last thing that I want to talk about, and then I'll let Andrew move on, is that it is a chain of survival. It's that early recognition, early call to 911. Preferably an early AED. Remember I said there are system weaknesses? That's what this community needs to do a better job of. And those are the things that we in the public safety arena are going to continue to do. We need to work on our public access defibrillation program. That's one of the champions that we'll do. It's not going to come overnight. The other component that we need to add is a system called Pulse Point that engages our public. It allows our public to register with us as a public safety entity, that they are a trained CPR provider, and when our dispatcher sends out that cardiac arrest in a public place of assembly, that person, if they're within 250 feet of that cardiac arrest, will be notified. In addition, it will tell them where the closest AED is to get those rescuers there involved early. Because again, what did I tell you Glendale's travel time was? 9 minutes. Guess what? When we looked at our data, we are on par with Glendale, 9 minutes and 12 seconds. So if we want to see results like Mr. Anthony, we can't do it alone. It's going to take the dispatcher coaching and doing dispatcher-assisted CPR. In this case, a police officer being at the right place at the right time. That's why we train them to have that life-saving technique as well. But if we can get the community engaged, this will be the rule rather than the exception. And I can tell you that every phase that we implement, we get more and more survivors. And we have folks that are here to have another day with their family. And it's because of the efforts between the police department, our EMS transport responders, the hospital, and obviously the fire department. So I hope that our next survivor recognition, that again, this becomes the rule rather than the exception, and that the members in our community will engage with the public safety entities to help continue this effort of saving lives.
Chief, would you be so kind as to introduce our guest real quick?
Yeah, thank you. I'd be remiss if I didn't introduce Ms. Carol Gibbs. Carol, would you mind standing up, please? Carol is with the SHARE program, and remember how I told you Arizona is one of those leading EMS programs? The SHARE program is a registry that we have here in the state. They're actually compiling all the data that we have on cardiac arrest. They make the linkage between us as pre-hospital providers, the hospital component, and any recovery care that goes on with our survivors. And at the end of the day, it's system management. What Carol does is she participates in events like this so that we recognize those survivors and those folks that played a role in saving those lives, so that, again, we use this as a tool to educate the public and show the real results like Mr. Anthony. So Mr. Anthony, I thank you for being here tonight, because doing this over 27 years, I can tell you that it gets frustrating as a paramedic. It was one of the things that drove me from an EMT to a paramedic, because I was tired of seeing folks die as a result of BLS CPR. I figured as a paramedic I could make a difference, being able to defibrillate, provide the advanced life-saving skills. But I got to tell you, we weren't having those results. They were probably 5% at best. And now we are really making a difference across the country for those folks that are analyzing their system, bringing all the partners in play, and constantly evaluating that. And you're the result of those efforts. So thank you for tonight, and I'm glad you're here.
So Mrs. Gibbs actually brought a few things as well that we've kind of added to a few of the things that the police department and the fire department put together to present to some of these rescuers in recognition of their efforts. So we have kind of a handful of things that we're going to be giving to everyone all at once. So don't feel overwhelmed or anything like that, but we got some goodies here. Got some stuff here to hand out. You know, a lot of words are getting used that kind of highlight what this is really all about. I know he said champion. He said that a couple times. He said we're gonna champion this, or we're gonna champion that. And truly, I believe that there's a couple champions in the room already, right here with us, and a couple of leaders in this room as well that have groomed us and helped us and trained us to be who we are and to do what we do as responders, as rescuers, and to be the links in that chain of survival. So the way I want to do this, if you guys don't mind, and the way I want to present it is kind of in a chronological order, kind of the way it happened. So as I call some of these people up, I'd like them to come up and receive their award, and then stand up here until we move forward into the next kind of category of rescuer. So this first category is actually going to have a few people, and I'm going to need a little bit of help. And if you guys don't mind, I'm going to bring up my fire chief, Scott Miller, if he'd like to join me. I came this close to calling you my previous fire chief. Yes, sir. Okay, so he's going to help me present these awards to our first set of people here. So these are our citizen rescuers. These are the people that didn't take an oath, right? They didn't take an oath of service. They didn't have a duty to act. They didn't have any recent formal or updated training. It's absolutely phenomenal that they engaged. It's phenomenal that they had the courage to do what they did and act the way that they acted. Each one of them played a very important role in the survival of our survivor. And I felt it necessary, and the fire department, police department, we all felt it necessary to recognize each one of those parts. But there was a leader in that team, and he's typically the leader of this bunch as it is. But I don't think this could have happened in front of a better group of people. When I went and introduced myself to them, I was excited. I wanted to hear the story. I wanted to get with these people that did this extraordinary thing, and I wanted to see it from their point of view. And they probably thought I was weird. Most people probably do in their first encounter with me, but I was jumping for joy. I thought it was outstanding that we had that element that we were looking for in our community right here already. And so I said, well, which one of you started CPR? And George Salas, if you'd like to join me. Did I say that right? All right. Please come down here, sir, and join me. It's an absolute honor to have this man here with us today. When I first asked him what he saw, what he heard, why he did what he did, he was so humble. He was so humble. He immediately acknowledged his faith. He immediately acknowledged his team and didn't want any of the credit for himself for what happened that day at all. And that, to me, just makes me want to give him that much more recognition. It truly does. And I know I don't stand alone in that. I really don't. So we've got a few things here for you, sir. There's a plaque there. It says the Casa Grande Community Lifesaver Award, presented to our community member, George Salas, for a heroic heart, displayed on February 28th, 2014. And sir, I couldn't think of better words to describe what you displayed in that interview with me or what you displayed that day with your friend and coworker, Mr. Anthony. So we'd like to present this plaque to you, for your efforts. And I just... Included there that the chief just gave you was the certificate from the SHARE program that Mrs. Gibbs brought, as well as a token, a coin. And I don't know a lot about this program, but I know that's pretty cool. You know, I don't got one of those. But it's really neat that so many people came together so quickly to recognize these efforts. It really is. But he had a team, and like I said, he immediately acknowledged that team. So, you know, when we teach CPR and we teach it to the layperson, to the community member, we teach it along with other things. You know, we teach it with first aid, we teach it with AED usage, and some of those elements weren't present, but there was first and foremost recognition of the emergency. He recognized the potential for an emergency. When the actual event happened, our survivor let out a yell and a statement, and from what I understand, he's kind of a joker. Right? He kind of likes to joke around, poke fun, and have a good time while he's at work. So at first, our rescuers thought he was joking around, just poking fun. But they immediately recognized right after that that it was a very serious deal. And George's son actually assisted immediately in helping our survivor to the ground so he didn't receive any secondary injuries from a fall. He immediately began to assess him and his responsiveness with George, and they immediately began those efforts as a team. And George let out a yell after that. But let's bring up your son. Let's bring up Chuck. Chuck, come up here and stand next to your dad if you don't mind. Another humble man. All smiles, but not in your Batman uniform. You didn't bring it. Well, we'd like to present this to you as well. It's a certificate, also a lifesaver award in recognition of your efforts, community service, dedication to our community, and the certificate also for Mrs. Gibbs. And we'd just like to say thank you as well. We really would. And I said, well, where'd you learn CPR? And it's been a few years for George. He says, man, I learned it while I was working with the prison for a little while. And I said, Chuck, where'd you learn CPR? He said, I like documentaries. How outstanding is that, right? So he's like, Netflix. I'm not trying to do a plug for Netflix, but that's what he said. He said, man, they got some really great documentaries. I love to watch them. So absolutely outstanding. And if you guys would ever like any formal training, come see me. We'll definitely take care of you and make sure. But you guys did a fantastic job. So at about that point, George says, somebody call 911. Maybe I might be a little off in my timing, but here they are. They recognize the emergency, and they help the man to the ground. And they said, somebody call 911. Help, call 911. And Esther answered that call to service in our community. Esther, would you be so kind as to join us, please? This sequence of events is absolutely picture perfect. It comes right out of the book. It truly does. If the American Heart Association video was running behind these people, it would be going in sequence exactly with what's happening. They recognized the potential for an emergency. They had the will to do something about it. They ensured their own scene safety and the scene safety of their friend by helping him to the ground without receiving any secondary injury. They yelled out, somebody call 911. That's what happened. Somebody called 911. But, you know, our system's not perfect. There's challenges still. We still have things that we need to work out. And I guess those challenges are always going to be met as we evolve in our services and whatnot. So there was some bouncing around on the cell towers. And their first receiver on the other end wasn't a dispatch center locally. And they had to get transferred around, and this is a high-stress situation, especially for people who aren't trained to handle these emergencies in these darker hours like some of our public safety officers are. But Esther was diligent in her efforts, and she stood on that line, and she took and played a very intricate role in this as well. So we have 1, 2, 3. Oh, there's one more. There's one more citizen rescuer out there. There he is. All right, so at about that point, another coworker was present as well. And like I said, we don't all handle these things the same way. Even as public safety professionals, each one of us handle stressful situations differently. We truly do. That's why we have crews and teams. That's why we lean on each other and we call each other brothers and sisters in what we do, is because we need that support. We need it at home, that support network at home, and we need it at work. And Roberto had stepped outside. He had stepped outside to catch his breath. He had stepped outside to say a prayer. And at that moment, as he was catching his breath, he looked up and he saw Officer Ibarra, did I pronounce that correct, sir? Happening by down the road. Now, I don't understand how coincidental that truly is. I really don't. How perfect that was. That man was meant to be here today. And if that doesn't prove it, that part of this situation alone, I don't know what does. But Roberto sprang into action. He sprang into action at that moment, and he flagged down that officer. Roberto, would you be so kind as to join us up here, please? So not only did we have one citizen rescuer that was willing to engage, one citizen rescuer that sprang into action to help a friend, a coworker, a fellow community member here in Casa Grande. We had four. Four that teamed up together as a crew, as coworkers, as friends, as a family, to help their friend and their fellow family member. And I'd just like to give all four of you another round of applause as a team. Thank you for being a part of our community, and I'm honored to be a part of a community with you. I truly am. Okay, I'm going to bring up Mr. Anderson again. We're going to have a... Ooh. I just had a movie flash in my head all of a sudden. Mr. Anderson. What does that remind you of? That reminds me of something. Matrix! That's what it is. Officer Thomas Anderson. Sir, I didn't mean to talk about that. Would you be so kind as to continue
Absolutely.
the awards portion?
Thank you, Andrew. So there's something I wanted to preface this with. Anything else? One quick thing is that although this is all happening together, I want to let the couple of people that we're about to bring up here in just a minute, let them know that if they don't already, I think they should. We do have actual ceremonies for the police department that happen a couple times a year, and we plan on doing another ceremony at that time. So we look forward to that with an award then also. But let me begin by identifying the couple of people that have been asked to come up here and identify. This first person, I'll ask our communications manager, Mike Brashier, to come forward. This first person is our dispatcher, and that's where, if I can follow in Andrew's steps there. Where'd Andrew go? Left, see? He's kind of been going chronologically here as everything happened. And the next person in line there to be contacted was our dispatcher. Our communications manager, Mike Brashier, who's up here with me, is going to say just a couple little things. Andrew kind of caught me off guard. He's making me feel like I'm supposed to say a lot now, and like he did, but he likes to talk a lot, so that's all right, I understand. But I actually conned our communications manager into preparing to say a couple things. So, Mike, please.
When the call was received from Melissa Engstrom. And if we can get Melissa to come on down. This was Melissa's 7th call of giving directions with CPR. And that's since we implemented the program of the dispatchers giving directions back in September. Since that time, the dispatch center has given over 30 directions to callers. So Melissa, thank you for your job. Thomas?
She's not usually that shy. I don't know what the deal is. The next person I'd like to call up here is our patrol captain, J.R. Parrow. And Captain Parrow is going to identify a gentleman that you've heard about a few times already this evening, and that'll be Officer Ibarra. Captain.
Good evening, everyone. I am Captain J.R. Parrow, and I just want to thank you all for being here. It's as one of the new guys in town, what an incredible opportunity to come and not only see a life saved, but to recognize one of our own officers as part of this team that saved a life. I'd like to ask Officer Jeremy Ibarra to come up here and join me. Just a quick note about the life of a patrol officer. You just never know what's coming around the next corner, down the next street, down the next alley. What could come across as a normal shift is just going to be another series of radio calls suddenly turns into a moment where your actions could mean the difference between a life saved and a life lost. I want to personally thank Officer Ibarra for taking the time to not only get the skills that were needed that night, but to take that noble step and to step in there and take the action that was required to save a life. It's so good to see his family here. You should be proud of him. I'm very proud of him. I want to personally thank you, Jeremy.
So, we got what, 4, 5, 6 people so far who are a part of this team, who took part in it, who engaged and actually made something happen. I think it's actually once again, I'm overwhelmed with honor to be in the same room with some of these people. I truly am. So a lot goes into what we do. A lot goes into the leadership, and a lot goes into the motivation and the drive, and how proactive some of our people have to be in order to embrace some of these trainings, in order to actually engage and get some of these things done. So, so far we've gone over some people who they're unsung. You wouldn't think of them in these scenarios. You truly wouldn't. Officer Ibarra, you're a law enforcement officer. You wear that badge with pride, and you serve our community with pride, and everyone knows they hold you to that standard when they see you. But to think that you dropped knee and did compressions the way you did and engaged the way you did, I mean, I know that I don't usually see a police officer in that light. I see you in that law enforcement role, and I see you in that patrol car. But you joined up, and you did what we do, and you didn't hesitate. And I applaud you for that. I truly do. Melissa, is she still here? There she is. How outstanding it was that you knew what to do, what to ask, what to say, how to cadence the rescuers the way you did, and speak the rescue, to verbalize the rescue step by step. You weren't there. You couldn't see what they saw. All you could do is envision it, and that took a lot of dedication to learn and to apply in your job. It truly did. I applaud you for that. I really, really do. And so now we're at a point where that's what's happening. Well, Melissa's helping. Officer Ibarra is engaged. He's helping. And the fire service shows up. Well, this is kind of the way it happens, right? We get called. We show up. We go responding. Our wheels turn. We get there. But it was a little bit different this time than what we're used to. It was a little bit different than any of those other times that we got kind of, I guess, I don't know, I used to. I have no better word than that. I really don't. But what was it? C shift 501. There were 3 individuals on the engine that day, and they showed up, and they saw an unfamiliar sight. They saw another first responder already engaged in adequate compressions. They saw a community. They saw community members engaged and also involved in that rescue. And they sprung into action. But it was a little more than that. There was some leadership involved, obviously, right? Some maneuvering and some management. But there was only one paramedic on that truck, and that paramedic's brand new with our department, if I'm to understand the scenario correctly, right? Brand new with our department, solo medic, right? And he didn't hesitate. He didn't stall. He sprung into action, and he put his skills to work. He truly did. But it was a team effort. It truly was. And we'd like to recognize C Shift 501. If you gentlemen would join me as well. Do I have all 3 of them here with me? Oh, Chief, I just thought you were coming. You know? Now, a lot of the times when we talk about the team or the leadership or the crew, I guess I kind of just figure people already know, like we do, who's who and what's what. But Battalion Chief Frank Ritchie was in his battalion chief's vehicle at that point and responded to this scene as well. And there's a tremendous amount of training and management that goes into the battalion chief role as well, and a lot of communication skills. And he's definitely the leader of this team if he doesn't stand out with the white shirt. But we just like to recognize that leadership as well. And each one of our battalion chiefs on our fire department take a special duty on. And they all have special roles in the training and I guess grooming of our personnel. And this team actually did an outstanding job in doing what they did as well. And I don't discount what they did just because they took the oath to do it. I definitely applaud them for their service, and I think we should all recognize everything that you guys did that day as well, regardless of whether it's in your training or if it's already just assumed that you're going to be there and you're going to do it. I think you guys did an outstanding job of delivering that service this day, and a man was saved because of it. And you guys, obviously there's more to your team, and we'll discuss that here in just a second, but when you got there and you saw that unfamiliar sight, you adapted and you overcame. And you put it all to work, and you had something to work with, and you worked with it. You rapidly transported the patient, and you got him to definitive care. And I just thank you. Thank you for representing us so well.
Thank you, Andrew. Is high-performance CPR. That's the other critical component. It wasn't just the introduction of continuous chest compressions, but it was high-performance CPR. And that means that the analogy we make is like the pit crew at NASCAR, and that every member has a role. Each member of that team had a role. Chief Ritchie made that fourth person up in that team, because normally it's a four-person engine company. They ran short that day. Chief Ritchie made up that fourth person. So each of those individuals had an assignment. And again, the pieces to the puzzle is that high-performance CPR has to continue, has to be started, has to continue. They have to do that CPR. They have to apply the defibrillation without interrupting CPR, at least getting the components on the chest. You obviously don't want to shock while they're doing CPR. Otherwise, your rescuers all of a sudden have afros and are looking at you going, what the heck's going on? They have to intubate while the chest compressions are going on. They have to start the IV and give the drugs, all while chest compressions are going on. That's a change, and that's a key part of this. All of these things that we talk about are changes of culture, not an easy task when you take folks that have been doing it for 10, 20 years. Our dispatch center, we've incorporated this in a matter of 6 months. And every single dispatcher has embraced this. Again, seeing the results. When you see these types of results, you really understand and appreciate that change for the better. So I wanted to point that high-performance CPR out, because sometimes, again, I think we take that for granted within our jobs. The public expects that, but I can tell you across the country, these results aren't seen everywhere, so it's important for us to recognize the successes of that high-performance CPR.
This is definitely the first event like this that we've had in this community, and it's definitely the first event that I've had the honor to participate in like this. So the timing's a little bit off, and I'm going to miss a few things, and for that I apologize. I really do. I hope you can forgive me, but I hope to hit on all the important points, and I hope to recognize everyone as individuals, but also as that team. So if you could bear with me, we had another team join our team at this point. Okay, so here we have an advanced life support crew going to work, and they're doing their thing, and the community's been engaged, and the police department and their rescuers been engaged, the dispatch department and their professional dispatchers is aiding in these efforts. Now we had an ambulance crew show up. And most often, the community doesn't really recognize the difference in blues. They really, really don't. They see another set of blue shirts show up. They don't read what's on the back of the shirt. They don't really pay too much attention to the patches on everybody's shoulders. Most of the time, they're going to call us EMTs. They're not going to recognize the difference between an EMT and a paramedic. And most of the time, they'll know the difference in our vehicles. They'll say, well, the ambulance showed up, or the fire truck showed up, right? But they won't really recognize the difference in the professions. And this time, there was a seamless effort that supported that community view. And this crew showed up and joined the efforts flawlessly. And they became a part of the team, and they helped package the patient, and they engaged their advanced life support skills, and they were immediately cohesive with the other rescuers that were on that scene at that point in time. So we wanted to bring them here, and their supervisor and the crew themselves, like I said, I think it's just extraordinary that everybody came together for this on such short notice. But I would like to bring up Southwest Ambulance Unit 501 from that day, if they don't mind. Sir, if you would like to join them as well, you can. Not enough can be said about our leadership, folks. There's really not. I mean, from our battalion chiefs, our assistant chiefs, our shift supervisors, our chiefs, our captains, our lieutenants. They put a lot into us. They really do. So I'd just like to put a shout out to you as well, sir, for being here to support your crew in this recognition. But gentlemen, I mean, you got there, and once again, you dropped a knee next to the crew that was already engaged, and it was flawless. And we're honored for you to be a part of our community, and honored that you were a part of our team that day, and we hope to see you on many more of these and many more days to come. We truly do. Thank you for your dedication to our community. Where am I at with it? Oh, man. Man, how do you thank someone for being a survivor? How do you thank them for persevering? For having that fight in them still? How do you do that? How do you call a man and say, sir, I'd like to recognize all those that participated in your rescue. Now, obviously, we've gone through the pre-hospital care of it, right? And when I called this man, he hangs out in good company. I had already met George and his family and the rest of the crew at the shop, and how humble they were and how awesome it was to be around them. I just can't explain it. I really can't. But when I called him and he answered the phone, it explains a lot. I don't think an event like this or a save like this could have gone to a higher quality or a higher character person. I really, really don't. I think that this man truly deserves to be a survivor, truly deserves whatever moment or minute or day or whatever from this point forward is gifted to him. I really do. But it was my honor to speak with him and interview him over the phone and get his take on everything. And I think we all owe him a moment of our time to kind of hear what he has to say. So if Mr. Anthony, would you please join me up here? Man, look at you. Didn't miss a stride coming down here, sir. It's a privilege. It's an honor.
It is.
Thank you for joining us. Please.
First of all, I'd like to thank God for all of your professions. I'd like to thank your timing. I never knew that my co-workers knew CPR or would even engage. And I never knew my other co-worker could run so fast and get out the door. And I never knew my owner could speak so fast. But I'm glad they all come together, and I appreciate you, Brother Ibarra, and everybody that's here. I never realized that it takes what it takes to save a life. But I am a miracle, and I can't thank you enough. So, thank you.
We presented him with a plaque. Once again, how do you award someone for being a survivor? The best thing we could think of is the perseverance that he displayed that day, that fight, that fighting spirit and heart that he still had going on, and also the survivor coin that's going to him puts him in touch with a survivor network through Mrs. Gibbs that's going to be absolutely extraordinary for you, and I'm sure your involvement will bring a strong testimony to that organization as well. But I called him and I asked him if he would be a part of this. Now this man is fresh out of the hospital, fresh into recovery from this this whole event. And I mean, I've never experienced it. I couldn't explain it. I don't understand it. But here he is. He walked right down, right here next to me. And how many times did you code from when?
Five, possibly 6 on the operating table.
Right. So 5, possibly 6 times from when they initially saw him collapse to when they had finally performed the surgery on him in the Phoenix area. Was it Arizona Heart?
Yes.
Was that correct? Okay.
Correct.
So, and then to home. All of a sudden home. Right? Outstanding. And so I call him and I say, will you be a part of this event? He said, yep. Got a couple conditions, and I'd like to discuss one with you before I say yes. He said, you teach CPR? And I said, yes, sir. Yes, sir, I do. And he said, you're coming to my church, and you're going to teach everybody in the congregation that I am involved in CPR. And he made me commit to coming to that church and teaching those people, everybody in that congregation, CPR. So once again, he turned it right around and said, we're going to help that many more people, and we're going to engage that many more people in our community. So for that, again, you're a hero too, sir. All right. What an outstanding bunch of people. Outstanding bunch of people. And I'd just like to express how honored I am to be up here again and be a part of this community. But we're gonna go ahead and close, but I'm gonna bring up another outstanding professional in our community, another outstanding leader that we're proud to call a partner in public safety. And he'd like to share a few words with us as well. And if you could all lend him your ear in closing. Mr. Cervantes, Thomas, would you like to talk a little bit beforehand? I don't know him as well as you do. I just know he's got a great smile.
Chief Cervantes.
Does this come off? Just kidding. Anyway, Andrew, what a great job putting this together. So very good job. Thank you, Thomas, for assisting in that. Mr. Anthony, we're very glad you're here tonight for a variety of reasons. So you had to do all this to bring us together. That's an amazing thing, so thank you for that. And don't take that lightly because it's true. It's an amazing thing to come together as a community like this. To the award recipients, great job. That's the way programs are supposed to work. I love it when a plan comes together, right? And it did on this night. But the only other thing I want to add is I want to talk real briefly about our responsibility, and that is as a community. And that's the one thing that everyone touched on about teamwork, but the other thing is a responsibility to take care of one another. It's not about a program. It's not. It's about us coming together as a community to handle any situation that comes our way, and that's what we saw tonight. And you saw the number of people it took to do that. And most importantly is the outcome of that. And we do have a philosophy in the police department that if we get together, not only as an organization, but as partners and as a community, great things will happen. And you've seen that tonight. And I'm confident that in the future, we'll continue to see great things. So with that said, I just want to thank everyone, and it was a pleasure to come tonight to celebrate this special moment. So thank you very much for everything.
So that was the closing statement, but here's the closing remark. I don't know. 2 things I'm going to ask of you. Number 1, that's not really what time it is. No. I know some of y'all are looking up there like, holy cow, Andrew, stop talking. Number 2, this is not. I'm not trying to give some advertisement. I really do want to offer this to you. This weekend on Saturday, we're having our annual Public Safety Day, and it's to meet your first responders, and everyone from firefighters to medics to the helicopter pilots that fly for air evac and native air and all them, and police officers and border patrol agents and sheriff's deputies and McGruff and fingerprinting and VIN all kinds of stuff is going on at the Target parking lot at the Promenade Mall on Saturday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. There's no fee. We're not selling anything. It's an opportunity for you to bring your families and maybe let some of your friends and other family members know about it, to come out and meet the people that try to do this for you all the time. So I offer that to you. And number 2, we'd like to take a picture of all of you that have been up here tonight. And so when we close out here and leave, if we could ask all of you to come up here, that were up here to receive an award, and we'd like to take a picture for a few different reasons. One, I'm just going to put it all over Facebook. If any of you work undercover somewhere, just let me know that when you get here at the transmission shop, undercover at the transmission shop. But if you have a problem with it, let me know afterwards privately, and I'll make sure to put like McGruff's face on your head or something. No, all kidding aside, we'd like to take a few pictures of you together, and thank you very much for being here. This was great. Thank you, and good night.